Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Cutter Top 10 sports video. And today we're going to look at the top 10 what ifs in WWE wrestling history. Now, bear in mind, I don't really have any outfits for WWE, so logically, I just wear whatever I want. So, anyhow, we're going to talk about the top 10 WWE what ifs, alternate realities, and all that. It's not completely right to um, rank some of these because there are some deaths and all that really hurt and all that. Well, anyway. All right, number 10 is what if Daniel Bryan was not cleared to return to wrestling? Daniel Bryan was this great guy on the independent circuits. WWE signed him, made him World Heavyweight Champion, made him lose in 18 seconds to Sheamus at WrestleMania 28. But that loss actually made Daniel Bryan kind of what they call an underdog, and everyone liked the underdog, except for the authority of Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, who are giant douchebags. Anyway, Daniel Bryan would always try to defy them, but they always pushed him back a few steps. However, after Royal Rumble 2014, Bryan kind of snapped, and many fans took over the ring with their Yes t-shirts and yelled at Triple H and Steph and all that. Triple H agreed to allow Daniel Bryan to wrestle him to start WrestleMania 38. If Daniel won, he can go to the main event with Randy Orton and Batista. And fortunately, though, Daniel Bryan won that match and then beat Batista by tap out, and it was known as Miracle Kid, the Miracle Kid, the Miracle Kid. I thought it was the Miracle Came. It would have made much more sense. Unfortunately, though, injuries would force him to relinquish the WWE belt, and also in 2015 he won the Intercontinental belt at WrestleMania, but then he had to lose it due to injury, and this was basically too little, too late. He lost 3 years of his wrestling career. He came back in 2018 saying that he was medically cleared. And then, he went to AEW, kind of a tyrant, kind of a bad boot. Nevertheless, what if he wasn't cleared to return? Well, Daniel Bryan still had a good career. I mean, you can't take away the WWE titles that he won and all that. It's like Chris Benoit and all that. Of course, another what if is what if Chris Benoit didn't do what he did? Well, it was going to happen eventually with the wrestling injuries. We will get into that. Number 9 is what if Eddie Guerrero had passed away? This was one of the most tragic wrestling deaths of all time because Eddie Guerrero had actually been part of WCW, then went to WWE after Bischoff refused to have him, Benoit, Malenko, and Saturn help out. So he went to the WWE. He was Intercontinental Belt champion for a couple times. Unfortunately, though, he had substance use problems. WWE put him in rehab and fired him. Eddie basically lost all that he had. But, however, he actually decided to use this as a springboard to get his life back. By 2003, he was welcomed back to the WWE with open arms. He ended up winning the WWE belt from Brock Lesnar in 2004, which was amazing. This was a massive story. Unfortunately, in 2005, in November, after being Mr. Kennedy in a SmackDown match for a trip to be part of the Survivor Series SmackDown team, he died hours before a Super Show with Raw and SmackDown. Both were separate shows, but both separate rosters. They were going to be both in Minneapolis at the Target Center. Unfortunately, Eddie was found dead at around 6 in the morning, and they basically changed the thing with the Super Show would be basically a tribute to Eddie Guerrero. Both Raw and SmackDown would have matches in his honor and vignettes and all that. The Raw song for Eddie Guerrero was okay, but the SmackDown song was better. It was the anthem, Here Without You by Three Doors Down. It still gets me every time I listen to that. But of course, what if he hadn't passed away? Well, Stephanie McMahon hinted that Eddie Guerrero probably would have been a WWE champion again. He probably would have beaten Batista. Remember, Eddie had a massive heel turn in 2005, but then turned good guy by October. But yeah, it would have been brutal. Well, he might have had a good career. He might have went to AEW like Vicky and Chavo. But let's also remember that this ruined Chris Benoit in a way. Benoit, this was probably one of the things that made him snap and did what he did to his wife, child, and himself. So yeah, that might have helped Chris Benoit out. Number 8, what if the invasion angle was done right? This was supposed to be a good thing, like in a sense. Turner hated WCW. They said it was a write-off, so they basically said no, even though Bischoff thought he had some kind of rights deal. But Turner refused to do it because they were merging with AOL, and basically they didn't think wrestling was good. Ted Turner had faith in wrestling, but not the merger people. So WCW was bought out by Vince McMahon in a sense, but in storyline, Shane swiped in and took WCW away from Vince McMahon. And ECW, somehow stuck their noses into things with Steph McMahon taking over that with Paul Heyman there. Paul Heyman would do color commentary with Jim Ross after Jerry Lawler legitimately left WWE because of the abuse that his then wife, the Cat, suffered. So anyway, there was one tiny problem. WCW stars had what they call guaranteed contracts, and many of them opted not to be part of what they call the Vision Angle or any wrestling to do in late 2001. They were going to sit on their asses and collect checks. The WCW slash ECW roster was kind of thin and all that. They had WWE stars having to transition to the WCW ECW thing, the alliance and all that. If that wasn't bad enough, Triple H, one of the best WWE wrestlers, he actually suffered a legit torn quad. He was out till January 2002, so he wasn't part of the Invasion Angle. It would have been nice to see what would have happened if he had to be involved, because Steph McMahon, his storyline wife, they weren't married till 2003 in real time. Actually ended up for ECW. Would Triple H turn his back on WWE? They had to make Stone Cold turn his back on WWE, which was not good. But I personally think that, yeah, it would have been a great Vision Angle. WWE probably would have won. And maybe the WCW, ECW stars would have had WWE jobs. Well, I mean, the NWO came in February 2002, before WrestleMania. Number 7 is, what if John Cena turned heel before 2025? When I did my research, it gave me what if John Cena turned heel. But in 2025, he actually decided to turn heel. People forget also that he actually was kind of a heel in his first year in WWE. Well, after the ruthless aggression slap of Kurt Angle, he turned heel. Like, he became a rapper, but he turned heel in a sense. Like, he was not a good guy, and people cheered when he lost. Nevertheless, yeah, Cena turning heel would have been big. It would have been shock. It would have been just like Hulk Hogan, He was always a good guy. He was never a bad guy. Although he was a bad guy in the late 70s, early 80s for WWE for his run before he went to Rocky 3. But the fact of the matter is that, yeah, Cena would have turned villain, may have insulted some fans and all that. But remember, WWE was kind of under a PG umbrella after the Chris Benoit thing. So Cena turning heel would have probably been bad. And WWE were banking on Cena being the good guy, the ultimate good guy, even though he did bury the Nexus. I mean, the Nexus were bad guys. You don't want the bad guys to win. But maybe, yeah, John Cena probably, if they had lost cleanly, fair enough. Or if WWE won clean without Cena putting his power saying, no, I don't want to lose. Yeah, the villainous Cena and all that. We saw that in 2025 in Toronto. Of course, it was only meant to sell tickets and all that, and the fans basically rejected a villainous Cena. Number 6 is, what if the Undertaker streak was unbroken? I don't think it would have happened. I don't think they would have given Undertaker more than 20-0 and all that. I mean, the Undertaker started wrestling at WrestleMania at number 8 against Jake the Snake Roberts. He faced Giant Gonzalez, Diesel, I think, at one time. Can't remember other people. Kama Mustafa, no. He fought Psycho Sid. He fought Kane many times, like Stone Cold, Triple H, The Rock, Kurt Angle, I think, Mark Henry. The list goes on and on. Brock ended the streak at WrestleMania 30, mostly because Undertaker actually was legitimately hurt. They had to get rid of Taker. And all that. Brock ended the streak. Everyone was upset, including that one guy in the yes shirt with his eyes wide open. It's freaky. But yeah, I think the Undertaker would not have stayed unbeaten. I think someone would have beaten Undertaker, or Undertaker probably would have asked to lose a match. and all that. But yeah, that streak was made. Undertaker was good without that streak even. Number 5 is what if Roman Reigns did not come back from leukemia? Well, Roman Reigns was introduced as part of the Shield alongside Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, kind of a villainous group to take over. Although they would be probably they were anti-authority with Triple H and Steph being pissed off that they would actually support like Cody Rhodes before he left for AEW and alongside Goldust. But yeah, Roman Reigns was a big part of it. He kept winning titles. 2015, he turned bad guy when he slugged Vince McMahon. But Vince McMahon's a piece of shit. You know, Roman would be denied the title in 2016 by Triple H, basically being Nepo and all that shit. But Roman Reigns made a sterling thing months later and said that, you know, he called himself Joe NY, that was his real name and all that, and saying that football was done with him. He had a wife and a kid on the way. He was broke, but the WWE gave him a chance, and he fought hard in wrestling. Unfortunately, Roman said he was actually living with leukemia for 12 years, and basically, you know, he had to step back from wrestling. He came back 6 months later, said that my leukemia is in remission, yo, and it was amazing. I mean, the Shield helped him out. But of course, you know, what if it didn't happen? Maybe we don't see the Roman Reigns that was dominant for almost 4 years in WWE winning, keeping the belt after so many times. Of course, Roman had lots of help winning the belt. But anyway, yeah, Roman Reigns, his leukemia was big and all that. And, and it actually did ruin him in a sense post COVID because he couldn't really fight it in WWE after COVID because of the autoimmune thing of leukemia may have ruined things with if he got COVID, he would have been in trouble because of his system. But yeah, I think Roman Reigns would not have had the 4 year run. He had the belt. I don't think so. Number 4, what if The Rock or even Stone Cold stayed with WWE full time? It was a massive era to see The Rock and Stone Cold out there. 96, they both came into the WWE with promise. The Rock, you know, at Survivor Series with that Jerry curl hair and, you know, being the first third generation star, as Vince McMahon put it. He won the Survivor Series match, but, you know, by the first few months, he was a good guy. He was wearing that outfit. And then everyone said, die, Rocky, die. And then Rock decided to turn heel and basically screw over the fans. And it worked. The fans loved Rock. And of course, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin came in as the ring master. And then when he won King of the Ring in 96, supposedly after Triple H and Shawn Michaels screwed themselves with the curtain call, he said, Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. And basically made him a bad guy that you love to hate or you hate to love. And of course, Stone Cold would beat up on Vince McMahon, of course, epitomizing good over evil. I mean, yeah, they were big. And of course, the big Rock Stone Cold rivalry and all that. Rock left in 2003 to pursue Hollywood and all that. He did have some good movies like The Scorpion King and all that, but he had a massive stinkers such as Jumanji and The Tooth Fairy. Really? The Rock is a Tooth Fairy? He probably did for his daughter's sake. But the fact is that, yeah, The Rock probably would have had a good status. He has a legendary status, but if he had stayed in WWE longer than 2003, you know, maybe he does stand up to Brock Lesnar. Maybe he does stand up to Goldberg. Maybe he does do all these things. And like Stone Cold, like I know that Stone Cold had problems and all that, but you know he was a legend in WWE. He could have kept fighting and all that. Still, number 3 is what if Stone Cold never had his neck injury? So Stone Cold had lots of momentum and all that. However, at SummerSlam '97 SS in New Jersey, he would fight Owen Hart. Owen Hart would go for a pile driver on Stone Cold. And of course, the pile drivers would lift the guy and then the head's down at the bottom. But Owen would do it in such a way that he would protect the people's heads. Pull off the pile driver in a sense, but made it look like nothing happened. Unfortunately for Owen Hart, he made a stupid sit down pile driver and Stone Cold ruined his neck. Stone Cold was slated to win the match, of course. So he did all that. It was the most awkward looking pin around. And then Stone Cold had to vacate the IC belt because of his injury. And then that's when he started to stun Vince McMahon and all that. But I think the neck injury would have helped out Stone Cold. he came back at Survivor Series, faced Owen Hart in '97. And then, he was the WWE champ by WrestleMania 14 in '98. So that neck injury actually helped him out, gained him sympathy. He would have been good. What if he never suffered it? I don't know if he would have had the same opportunities and all that. Let's not forget that Stone Cold also had to get neck surgery, and that's why he was ridden out of Survivor Series '99, and he had to spend almost a year on the shelf. But he came back in glorious style. So I think he would have had the same thing. I think it would have his stuff would have happened no matter what. Number two is, what if Hulk Hogan never left for WCW? Well, Hulk Hogan was a great wrestler. He was trained. He was in the late '70s, early '80s, fighting people like Ted DiBiase before his $1 million gimmick. And Hulk Hogan was kind of a mean guy. He was a villain. He would fight Andre the Giant a couple times, and famously slammed Andre the Giant in 1980 at Shea Stadium. Bet you didn't know that, but it's true. There's video evidence. And then he wanted to go through Rocky 3 because they asked him to do Rocky 3. But WWE Chairman Vincent J. McMahon, Vince McMahon Sr., if you will, said no and basically cut him loose. Hogan did Rocky 3 anyway. The AWA, the American Wrestling Association, said they could have him. And then Vincent K. McMahon, Vince Jr., saw Hulk Hogan and got him back to WWE and all that. So he would be the main guy in the '80s. Basically, why WWE had the star appeal. WrestleMania 1 with his stuff on the Richard Belzer show, notwithstanding, he did well. He even influenced Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, the cartoon that actually was in limbo for many years because of Hulk's stupidity and other wrestlers who had problems. Like, Superfly Snuka is in it. Let's not talk about that. But anyway, yeah, Hulk was an icon. He said he would leave after WrestleMania 8 to pursue movie roles, and he did, in a sense. So he fought Sid Justice, Ultimate Warrior came in for the save. Hogan left. And then in January '93, somehow in some way he came back for some dumb reason, was part of the tag team title match, lost it, but then politicked his way to winning the WWE belt off of that Japanese wrestler, Yokozuna. Well, of course, Yokozuna is not really Japanese. But anyway, yeah, Hogan was the WWE champion. He promised to drop the title to Bret Hart, but reneged and dropped it to Yokozuna and then left for WCW. Now, the original plan was for Hulk to leave wrestling to do movies and not even give a shit about WCW. Unfortunately, though, WCW gave him the big money and all that. Hogan left and became a star for WCW, then turned heel practically because everyone was tired of him. Would WWE maintain its dominance in the '90s? I don't know. I think somehow in some way Hulk would have been hosed. I think leaving for WCW actually legitimized competition. And also, number one, what if the Montreal Screwjob never happened? Everyone asks about this question, and I can answer it. This is a bunch of crap. All that. Yeah, the Montreal Screwjob was terrible and all that. Bret Hart was loyal to the WWE. He signed a 20-year deal in 1996. Vince McMahon basically said, I can't pay you and all that. Then why did you give him the 20-year deal in the first place? So Bret turned heel, basically yelling at Americans and all that, being praised in Canada for many shows. When Canada did some shows, north of the border, he was praised, but in America, he would basically call it a toilet bowl. Vince allegedly told Bret to seek refuge in WCW. One problem, though, because Bret was the WWE champion. Bret said he would not want to lose at Survivor Series. He said he would drop the title somehow in some way. But Vince wasn't sure about it, so he got Shawn Michaels and Triple H in on a plan to screw Bret over. It was legitimate, that plan, because Bret Hart would not have spat on Vince McMahon or beat the shit out of him in the locker room. So he went to WCW, had a terrible run in WCW, had one title reign or something like that, and then got kicked in oblivion by Goldberg, which ruined his career. And then, of course, WWE started it. Vince McMahon turned from popular commentator to the boss who basically invented the Mr. McMahon character, saying Bret screwed Bret. But unfortunately, though, Vince would get his comeuppance thanks to Stone Cold Steve Austin and all that. Now, of course, in 2010, WWE finally got Bret to bury the hatchet with him, So he buried the hatchet with HBK. Vince didn't want to bury the hatchet. And then they had a match at WrestleMania 26, one of the slowest around. Brett won thanks to the Hart Foundation interfering, which was on purpose. Brett even won the U.S. belt before vacating it. But yeah, Brett came back. I mean, he probably would have came back sooner. I don't know his legacy post 97 if he's when he stayed on, but he probably would have been a decent wrestler. And maybe then he would have antagonized Vince McMahon while being in the WWE. Just saying. Anyway, I'm going to do.